But he that doeth wrong shall receive for the wrong which he have done. Shalom. First and foremost, giving all praises, honor, glory, respect, and blessings to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Rachakvadash. Salutations to the Lord's elect on the four corners of the earth, pushing this truth and sincerity while patiently waiting for Yahweh Shai's return. Double honors to our apostles and elders of Great Millstone, which have taught us everything we know through the spirit and power of Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai. And I just wanted to do another video based on the same video right here that was done by this brother from GMS Saints to the Most High. And he did a video based on a speech which this woman made here. Now, just real quick, because I was actually reading this earlier. This is going into discrimination against Israelites. And, these are the things that was pretty much legal to do in America concerning Israelites. The Israelites, which are the so-called Negro, Latino, and Native Indians. So here it says kidnapping and 300 years of enslavement, right? Torture, rape, brutality, medical experimentation. So, like some examples of medical experimentations would be like what? MK Ultra, shock therapy, experimenting on people, experimenting on Israelites through gene splicing, human experimentations, injecting certain of our people with certain things to see what kind of adverse effects it will have. Let's see, black codes, sharecropping, bans on testifying against whites, mandatory segregation, bans on black jury service and voting. Yeah, at one point, we were not allowed to vote here in America, which, you're not supposed to vote. You're not supposed to enlist anybody to be over you in this country. You're not supposed to do that. As the Lord said, you're supposed to put a king. You're supposed to put a king over you, one that is of your brethren. You're supposed to have an Israelite for a king to rule over you. But here it is, you Jakes, you're voting. You're voting to put a heathen over you as your king. Okay. So it says, and voting, lynchings, and mob violence, imprisoning people for unpaid work. Yeah, and in a matter of fact, that still goes on today. In these prison systems, any Israelite that has life in prison, he's pretty much working for free. Okay. They might have him out there on the roads with a pickaxe, I don't know, doing digging. They might have Jake out there digging, cutting grass. Basically, if you have life in prison, you're doing mandatory work. And if you're doing mandatory work, you're basically working for free. Okay, you're basically working for free. And if you have like maybe 10 to 15 years in prison, they'll have you working, but they'll have it to where you're making only what, 10 to 20 cents per hour. So you're making only 10 to 20 cents per hour in prison. You see that? You're making 10 to 20 cents per hour in prison. So one of the main reasons why they have these prison systems is really to have free slaves mandatory labor. And that's ultimately what these prisons are about, man. So it says imprisoning Israelites for unpaid work, bans on interracial marriage. So, here it is, you Jakes, you were not allowed to have sex with so-called white women. And if you were caught doing so, they would torture you and kill you. And a matter of fact, look at Emmett Till. Even though, he had no sexual relations with that woman, I believe she lied on him. She lied on him and said that he raped her, even though he didn't. And what happened? They took Emmett Till somewhere. They brutally beat him. They tortured him. They gouged out his eye. They put him through excruciating pain before they murdered him. Even during the time of slavery, the slave master's woman, if she wanted to have sex with one of the slaves and he refused, what she would do? She would go to the slave master, the man of the house, and she would literally lie on that slave and say that he tried to rape her. In worst cases, the slaves, the male slaves was forced to have sex with the slave master's wife because she would threaten him. She would threaten to tell the male slave master of the house. So, he would end up having sex with her. And then if the slave master of the house found out, she was pregnant, even then she would lie in order to defend herself. She would say that one of those nigger slaves out there raped me. That's exactly what she would say. One of those nigger slaves raped her. And what would happen as a result? The slave that was accused of rape, he would be tied to a tree, and he would be brutally whipped with a whip. And not only that, but then he was brutally tortured in front of the other slaves, and then he was lynched. He was hung on the tree. So these devils had nothing. So these Edomites, so-called white people, they have had nothing but hate for our nation of people. So it says bans on interracial marriage, redlining to profit realtors and bankers, employment discrimination. Yeah, like, have you ever heard the term first one fired, last one hired? Well, that saying is true. And as a matter of fact, when I was in the world, I used to have serious trouble looking for a job. Like, I must have put in over 100 applications before in the past before I finally got me a job. That's how hard it was. Why? Because you're the last one hired and the first one fired. Man. So basically, if you were an Israelite, like in the late 1800s, for an example, I'm talking about like the 1870s, 1880s, 1890s. If you was an Israelite around that time, let's just to say if you was an Israelite man, right, and you had a family, but because in most cases, a lot of those families did starve to death if they did not resort to eating out of trash cans, eating the remainings of what was left in the garbage cans. In the late 1800s, 1870s, 1880s, 1890s, if you was an Israelite man and you had a family and you was looking to get a job to provide for you and your family, you was literally discriminated against. They would not allow you to be employed. They would not allow you to get a job. And then on top of that, they a couple of so-called white people will probably chase you down the street. to tell you to get out of here. So here it says educational discrimination. So you was not allowed to be educated, which the education system today has nothing to offer. Okay, it says biased laws and policing practices, white flight. I'm gonna have to look into that. What is white flight? It says subprime mortgages, mass incarceration, school to prison pipeline, disproportionate special ed referrals and punishments, testing, tracking, school funding, biased media representation, historical omissions, and the list continues, man. So this is all the things, the discriminations that our people went through even after slavery.
Fine against whites, which made it technically legal to murder black people in this fine against whites, which made it technically legal to murder black people in this country, and you are now in my lifetime. And I'm going to say it again because a lot of white people seem to think it ended a long time ago. We're in my lifetime about a quarter of the way through that slide. And then we see...
And she looked like she was born maybe in the early 1900s, like 1940s, 1950s. I don't really know how old she is, but I know in the late 1800s, going into the 1900s, these things was actually legal. So technically, it was not a long time ago. It might have been maybe about, 80, 90 to a little over 100 years ago. But if you ask me, that's not a long time ago. Okay, there's people alive today who are over 100 years old who was alive during the early 1900s, where this stuff was actually still legal, where it was still legal to murder Israelites, so-called Negro, Latino, and Native Indians.
See, about 2/3 of the way through employment discrimination, and we are in 2018 with copious empirical evidence. Right, so let's pick it up there. Employment discrimination, educational discrimination, biased laws and policing practices, white flight, subprime mortgages, mass incarceration, the school to prison pipeline, disproportionate special ed referrals and punishments, testing, tracking, school funding, biased media representation, historical omissions, and so much more. It is a system, not an event. It's the system we're in, and none of us could be, and none of us were.
Excuse me 1 minute. Satan is at work here. Okay, so you heard her, and even today, this excuse me, this whole thing that we're living in right now is what? It is a system, and ultimately, when you look up the word system, it goes back to the pit. A system is a pit. And this whole system was set up to keep us trapped in the pit, to keep us trapped. That's why, if you get a woman, that could be a trap. Because if she divorces you, she could put you on child support and make your life twice as hard than what it normally is, this whole system is just set up to keep Jake trapped. The fact that you can buy drugs, the fact that you can buy drugs from down the street, you can buy weed, you can buy crack, you can buy heroin, you can buy the bong, you can get all this illegal shit, right? The fact that you can do all this is a trap. Because what happens if you're like in a vehicle, right, and you're driving down the street, and then the police pull you over, you know, what happens if the police finds out you're in possession of drugs? They could lock you up for drugs, for being in possession of drugs. You see, that's a trap. You know, that's why, you know, that's why a lot of our people, the Israelites, they get caught up on what? They get caught up on drug charges. Because this whole thing is just a trap to keep you on the bottom, man. You know, the jobs you have don't pay you enough. It's all done by design. You know, the so-called elites, they control how much money you get paid. You know, they control how much money you get paid. That's why, you know, every time you get your check, it just seems like you're running through it. You know, you can't seem to save up. Because it's all a track. You know, by the time you get your first check, you know, 80% of it is going towards bills or rent or utilities or water or internet or your phone bill or your light bill or gas. So it's like you almost never have any money to spend for yourself. Why? Because this whole thing is a system. You know, the whole police force is a system. It is a mafia. The whole police system is a mafia, a system where they all work together, you know, under one common penal code. And that's why, if it's the one thing these cops have in common, and that's to what? To shoot and kill Israelites. So, I want to start off with this scripture right here. Amos chapter 1 verse 11. Amos chapter 1 verse 11. Thus saith the Lord, Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai, for 3 transgressions of Edom, and for 4 I will not turn away the punishment thereof. Why? Because he did pursue his brother with the sword. What's the modern day sword? The gun. And did cast off all pity. Right, because that old hatred goes back to the book of Genesis, the 25th chapter, and Genesis, the 27th chapter. And his anger did tear perpetually, and he kept his wrath forever. And even to this very day, these so-called white people are still full of wrath towards our nation, the people. And a lot of them don't understand that. But it really goes back to Jacob and Esau. Okay, all this anger, this resentment, this hate that so-called white people have, it really goes back to their forefather Esau. Okay? That resentment, that hatred, and that indignation that so-called white people have toward our nation, it goes back to Jacob and Esau. Okay, now Jacob is our forefather. Jacob is the progenitor of the so-called white race, and that's starting with the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Indians. So if you are a so-called Negro, Latino, or Native Indian, you are a Hebrew Israelite. Okay. Oh yeah, and she said that was a long time ago, right? Well, wait a minute. Let's get that in Isaiah. Let's get that in the book of Isaiah. Isaiah chapter 14, verse 21. Isaiah chapter 14, verse 21. Prepare slaughter for his children. Whose children? The children who are descendants of the nation of Edom, which are so-called white people whose true biblical nationality are Edomites. Okay, an Edomite is a descendant of Esau, for the iniquity of their fathers. Right. because, like, sometimes you'll be out there on the highways and hedges, you'll be teaching about slavery and recompense, how the Lord is going to give his people recompense upon their enemies, especially their adversary, the so-called white man. And then you might get a so-called white person who might come up to the camp, and he might be like, whoa, well, wait a minute, that was my forefathers, I didn't do that, that was my forefathers. But wait a minute though, to show you that there's nothing spiritual about Esau, there is a such thing as reincarnation. There is a such thing as reincarnation. Reincarnation is real. You see? Reincarnation is real. And the fact is that you so-called white people, anybody who is a so-called white person that is alive today was alive during the time of slavery. And that's just the truth, because slavery started when? Slavery started around the early 1700s, right? Now we've been in captivity for what, almost 400 years, or who knows? Maybe almost 500 years. We don't know. But we've because captivity is slavery, by the way, and like it tells you in Baruch chapter. Let me just get it real quick, because even to this very day we're still in captivity. The book of Baruch. Did I spell that correctly? Okay. Yeah, okay. Baruch chapter 3 verse 8. Okay, Baruch 3 and 8. It says, "Behold, we are yet this day in our captivity, where thou hast scattered us for a reproach and a curse, and to be subject to payments, according to all the iniquities of our fathers which departed from the Lord." So even to this very day, we are still in our captivity. Okay? We are still in our captivity, even to this very day. So and now the Lord spoke about reincarnation. Reincarnation happens every 300 to 400 years. Right? So slavery started what? 300 plus years ago. Okay? Well, actually, let me see. I believe slavery actually started in the 1600s. So that's 400 plus years ago. Slavery started 400 plus years ago. So 300 to 400 plus years ago. Guess who was alive around that time? You so-called white people. Every so-called white person on this planet today, was alive 300, 400 years ago. You was around. Well, I won't say every single one of you, because we also got to look at the fact of what do they call that? It's a birth defect. It's when a woman gives birth to a dead baby. I forgot the name of that. But there's also that possibility. When a woman gives birth to a dead baby, because the spirit left that baby before that baby came out the womb of that woman. Yeah, I just look it up real quick. I don't like to not know things, so let's look it up. What is it called when dead baby. I forgot the name of it. Well, they call it stillbirth, but there was another one for it. Okay, so yeah, there was. Yeah, it's called stillbirth, but there was another one for it. It's a birth defect, but I guess we could just use stillbirth for now, you know. So yeah, you know, there's also the possibilities of, you know, stillbirths happening, you know, 300, 400 years ago. So I won't say every single Edomite that's alive today was back then, you know, but the vast majority of you Edomites that are alive today, you was alive during the time of slavery. So those same spirits that was alive during the time of slavery, that was killing, that was murdering Israelites, torturing them, hunting down Israelites for sports, you know, murdering Israelite children, babies, you know, doing all kind of heinous and atrocious acts towards the Israelites. Well, those same Edomite spirits that was alive back then are here today. They're here today. So Isaiah 14 verse 21, prepare slaughter for his children for the iniquity of their fathers. So you so-called white people, you know, you like to come up to the camp, well, wait a minute. I don't have anything to do with that. My forefathers did that. Well, wait a minute. You are your forefathers in the reincarnation, whether if you believe it or not. Okay, so you got to pay for your crimes. That they do not rise nor possess the land nor fill the face of the world with cities. Okay, and you're not going to be able to fill the face of the world with cities, because your ass, you Edomites, you're going to be in chains and in shackles in the kingdom of heaven, and you're going to be living in pits. Okay, so all these atrocious crimes you committed against the Israelites, which are the so-called Negro, Latino, and Native Indians, you got to pay for that, man. I don't care if it was your forefathers or not. You are your forefathers in the reincarnation. Y'all was around 300, 400 years ago when we were in slavery. Yeah, y'all were them same people who was skinning us. You was cutting off the scalps. You was hiring certain of our people to cut off our scalps and bring it back to them. Y'all was chopping our hands off. Y'all was chopping off our ankles. Y'all was castrating us. Y'all was cutting off fingers. Y'all was torturing us. Okay, and how can we forget about Derby's dose? Y'all used to have other slaves shit in the mouth of other slaves, and then you used to put a device on that slave's head. That way he could not vomit up the shit that was in his mouth. So he was just left there to gag for hours, suffering chronic stomach pain, chest pains, trouble breathing. Eyes was probably red, had a serious headache. We can't forget about Derby's dose. You know, okay? And even after slavery, you know, we can't forget about things like African Dodger. Okay, African Dodger, the delectable Negro, which was all about you so-called white people cannibalizing your slaves. Okay? Okay? How can we forget about Nat Turner's Grease? Okay? The reason why there's no pictures of Nat Turner was because y'all literally broiled him to death in a pot. And then on top of that, y'all made grease out of him. Y'all broiled him to the point of grease. And that's why like in the early, what was it? That's why like in the late 1800s into the early 1900s, our people did not want to buy anything that was of castor oil, because they feared that it might have been because they feared that Nat Turner's grease might have been in it. Okay, So yeah, there is a such thing as Nat Turner's grease, and it came from Nat Turner being broiled to death into grease. He literally, his body literally got reduced to grease, and y'all was literally making recipes out of it. Okay, look it up. It's called Nat Turner's grease, from the Delectable Negro. You know, y'all did all kind of shit to our nation, buck breaking. Okay, you would. Okay, you slave masters. You would sodomize the slaves, and then you would cannibalize them. Okay, our 4-year-old and 5-year-old children, y'all literally y'all would literally prostitute them off to other grown ass slave men and women. Okay, and we all know what they was doing with the slave males, those 5 and 7-year-old slave males. You know they was getting sodomized. 5-year-old, 6-year-old slave girls was being victims of rape or whatnot by the male or female slave masters. Okay, how can we forget about Gator Boo? What was Gator Boo about? How you would take the slave's baby, you would tie a rope around his ankle, and then you would cast it into the swamp. Meanwhile, the slave will be in the background, hearing his baby desperately crying, just crying. All right, and then what? After a couple of minutes, you didn't even hear the baby crying no more. Why? Because the baby got eaten by a fucking alligator. And that's happened to a lot of slave babies. You was using our babies as bait to catch alligators, so you can skin the alligators, so you could kill the alligator, skin it, and make leather material. Okay. And how can we forget about the leather jackets that you used to make from slaves' skin? You used to skin the slaves, right? And then you used to make leather material out of it. Leather chairs, leather couches, leather jackets, leather clothing. So you gotta pay for your crimes, man. And indeed you are. The Lord is going to give us recompense. Oh, you know what? Let me get that in 2 Thessalonians. This is the book of 2 Thessalonians, chapter 1, verse 6. Seeing it is a righteous thing with Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, to recompense tribulation to them that trouble you. And who's troubling us? Who's troubling the nation of Israel? Who troubled us during the time of slavery? So-called white people. You heathens. But mainly you so-called white people. So the Lord said that it is a righteous thing to get our paybacks on those who troubled us. Ezekiel chapter 25. I don't know if it's verse 13 or 14. So Ezekiel chapter 25 verse 12. Thus saith the Lord, Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, because that Edom have dealt against the house of Judah by taking vengeance, and have greatly offended, and revenged himself upon them. Revenge himself. What does that mean? Going back to the book of Genesis. Okay, in Genesis the 27th chapter, after Isaac had made an end of blessing Esau, Esau basically said in his mind that that the days of his father's mourning is at hand. Then will he murder his brother Jacob. So, you know, all these things that so-called white people is doing to us, even to this very day, it all goes back to their forefather Esau losing his birthright and his blessing to our forefather Jacob. And all these things that so-called white people was doing to our nation is all out of revenge, is all out of hate, resentment, indignation, anger, and wrath. So let's see what the punishment for so-called white people, the true descendants of Edom, are. Ezekiel 25 verse 13. Therefore thus saith the Lord, Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai, I will also stretch out my hand upon Edom, and I will cut off man and beast from it, and I will make it desolate from Teman, and they of Dedan shall fall by the sword, and even Teman, because Teman, ultimately, they're the ones responsible for these nukes being created, right? Albert Einstein, who was a so-called German, he was really a Amalekite. He was really a descendant of Amalek, which Amalek is a descendant of Esau. But Albert Einstein, he was the first one to figure out how to split the atom. But who taught him how to do that? The Lord did. The Lord gave him that information. So that way, you so-called white people can bring about your own destruction. Verse 14. And I will lay my vengeance upon Edom by the hand of my people Israel, and they shall do in Edom according to mine anger and according to my fury, and they shall know my vengeance. So hold on, let's read that nice and not nice, but let's read that cool and slow. Ezekiel 25 verse 14. And I will lay my vengeance. The Lord said that he's going to lay his vengeance upon Edom, which are so-called white people, starting with the so-called elites, trickling down to the rest of their nation of people. But how's the Lord going to do it? By the hand of his people Israel, the Israelites, which are the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Indians. And they shall do in Edom according to mine anger and according to my fury. Okay? So when we, the Israelites, get you so-called white people in slavery, okay? When we, the Israelites, the so-called Negro, Latino, and Native Indians, when we put you so-called white people in slavery, we are going to do to y'all according to the Lord's anger and according to the Lord's fury. And let me tell you something, that's going to be words cannot explain how terrifying that time is going to be for you so-called white people. It's going to be a very terrifying time, because the Israelites in the kingdom of heaven, we're going to have spiritual power. Hell, we're going to have spiritual power before Yahweh returns. Some of us, not all of us. Some of us got to be thrown into concentration camps and be beheaded for the word of Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai. And they shall know my vengeance, saith the Lord, Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai, our power. Now let's see. Oh yeah. Let's get that. Jeremiah chapter 30 verse 16. Jeremiah 30 verse 16. Therefore all they that devour thee shall be devoured. Okay? Even to this very day, we are still being devoured. We're still being shot down in the streets. Our people are all strung out on crack, on dope, on heroin, the bong, electrical cigarettes, fucking weed, meth, opium. Our people are far gone, man. Our people is all locked up in these jail systems because they have nothing. They feel like they don't have nothing to live for. Our people are gangbangers. You know, that this music has our people destroyed. Like our people is bugged out of their fucking mind. But it's all because of the so-called white man. And even to this very day, we're still being devoured through the food that we ate, through the food that we eat, through the air that we breathe. Through the water we drink. You know, how is it that they have all these sweet drinks like Snapple or Calypso drinks in glass bottles? But you mean telling me you can't sell water in glass bottles? And if they do sell water in glass bottles, you better best believe there's some shit in the water that's not supposed to be in it. But here it is, they'll sell you Snapple juices in glass bottles. Then they'll sell you Calypso, sweet Calypso drinks in glass bottles. But you can't sell Fiji water in glass bottles? But anyways, you know, even to this very day, we are still being devoured. Okay? It says, therefore, all they that devour thee, all they who devoured us, shall be devoured. And the number one nation on this planet that is devouring us is the nation of Edom. So-called white people, starting with the so-called elites, trickling down to the rest of their nation of people. And all thine adversaries, every one of them shall go into captivity. Why is that? Well, I'll tell you why. It says and they that spoil thee shall be a spoil, and all that prey upon thee will I give for a prey. Every one of them shall go into captivity. And why is that? Well, the Holy Scriptures explains to you why. We are the apple of the Lord's eye. Revelation, this is one of my most favorite chapters, chapter 13, verse 9. And if any man have an ear, let him hear. Now let's read verse 10. He that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity. He that killeth with the sword must be killed with the sword. Here is the patience and the faith of the saints. So he that killeth with the sword must be killed with the sword. Okay? And like I read in Baruch 3 and 8 earlier, we are yet this day in our captivity. Okay, so who led the nation of Israel into captivity? The nation of Edom did. And don't get me wrong, these heathens, they also had a hand in putting us in slavery. So guess what? They're going to get their ass whooped in the kingdom of heaven as well. We're going to be putting our foot in their asses too. But the nation of Edom, they're going to get it the worst in the kingdom of heaven. Okay? We're going to fuck you Edomites up far beyond recognition. And really, I'm just being kind when I say that. Because words cannot explain what's how bad you so-called white people are going to have it in the kingdom of heaven. I can't stress it enough, but it's going to be it's going to be beyond terrifying for you so-called white people. It's going to be beyond terrifying. Galatians chapter 6 verse 7. Okay, be not deceived. Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shai is not mocked. For whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap. So if you sow slavery, that's exactly what you're going to reap. If you sow lynchings and tortures, that's exactly what's going to come on your nation. Okay? If you sow killings, that's what's going to come upon you. Lamentations chapter 4 verse 21. Rejoice and be glad, O daughter of Edom, that dwellest in the land of Uz. The cup. What is the cup? The cup is talking about slavery. The cup also shall be passed through unto thee. Thou shalt be drunken, and shalt make thyself naked. Right. So slavery is coming for you, so-called white people. But you're going to serve your time of slavery in the kingdom of heaven. We're going to use you, so-called white people, as well as the rest of you heathen nations, to build up the kingdom of heaven. Okay? So extremely super duper hardcore slavery is coming for you Edomites, as well as you heathen nations. Chapter 49. Is it 49 verse 7? No, it's not. I think it was verse 9. I could be wrong though. Okay, here it is. Jeremiah chapter 49 verse 12. For thus saith the Lord, Yahweh Bahasham Yahweh Shai, behold, they whose judgment was not to drink of the cup have assuredly drunken. So in actuality, we was not supposed to go into slavery, but we did, right? Right? It says, and art thou he that shall altogether go unpunished? Thou shalt not go unpunished, but thou shalt surely drink of it. So guess what? Y'all are going to drink of the cup of slavery, man. And guess what? You're going to drink the dregs of the cup. You're going to drink the dregs of the cup. Revelation chapter 18 verse 6. Reward her even as she rewarded you. Right. How has America rewarded us? With rape, murder, robbery, torture, deceit, lies, drugs. But guess what? We're going to get our recompense on you so-called white people in the kingdom of heaven, but we're going to do it in righteousness. Okay? We're not going to go around buck breaking. Okay? We're not going to be... We're not going to go around. We're not going to go around prostituting children. We're not going to go around committing murder. We're not going to go around, doing anything unjust. Okay, the whole nation of Israel is going to be righteous in the kingdom of heaven. So when the Israelites get their paybacks on you so-called white people in the kingdom of heaven, it's going to be in righteousness. Hey, we're going to be allowed to torture y'all. Oh boy, I've been thinking of some really cool ways just to kill Edomites. I want to tie a rope around you motherfuckers and fly, and I just want to fly around the sun and just watch y'all roast slowly. I want to see your skin melt off of you. I mean, Lord's will if I'm of the elect, because I'm gonna do the same thing to your children too. So don't feel bad. It's not just the parents that's gonna be getting flown around the sun until their skin and flesh melt off of them. The same thing's gonna happen to your children too. And if your parents are lucky enough, they'll also get a free ride around the sun as well. Because they all gonna have ropes tied around their ankles, and I'm gonna be flying y'all right around the fucking sun, watching y'all melt. And Lord's will, I'm of the elect. And Lord's will, your brothers who are sincere, who truly want this kingdom to be destroyed, Lord's will, you're of the elect too. But I'm going to continue reading. It says, and double unto her double according to her works, in the cup which she hath filled to her double. So you devils are going to get double of what you did to us. Hell, and a matter of fact, it might even feel like it's more than double. The way that holy hell is going to come down on you Edomites in the kingdom of heaven, it's going to feel like it's more than double. Trust me, because the Lord said He's going to put His anger and His fury in His people, and they shall do to your nation according to the Lord's fury and anger. And I keep telling you, man, it's going to be extremely terrifying. It's going to be beyond extremely terrifying as to what's going to happen to you Edomites in the kingdom of heaven. Oh yeah, this is one of my favorite scriptures too. Let me get this. Psalms chapter 149, and I'll just start at 5. Psalms chapter 149 verse 5. Let the saints be joyful in glory. Why? Because we're going to finally be in our rest. So we're going to be joyful. We're going to be happy. We're going to be cheerful. You know, we're going to be embracing one another. Shalom, Shalom, Yahweh, Hashem, Yahweh, Shai, Brakadai, you know. And then we're also going to be glorifying. We're also going to be glorifying Yahweh, Hashem, Yahweh, Shai. So let the saints be joyful in glory. Let them sing aloud. Let the saints be joyful in glory. Let them sing aloud upon their beds. Let's go to verse 6. Let the high praises of Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai be in their mouth, and a two-edged sword in their hand. Two-edged sword, oh boy. Whoo! And you know what? We're going to be able to swing a two-edged sword perfectly without cutting ourselves, because we're going to be made perfect to execute vengeance upon the heathen. And the top heathen on the planet today is you so-called white people, and punishments upon the people. Okay? To bind their kings with chains and their nobles with fetters of iron. And that's going to happen when Yahweh Shai returns and He delivers His elect men. Because after Yahweh Shai and His elect men come back down to the earth, you know, with those glorious bodies, because Yahweh Shai, He's already going to be glorious when He returns. But when the elect men come back down to the earth with those glorious bodies, along with Yahweh Shai, we're going to put you so-called elites in slavery. You so-called elites, you Rothschilds, you Rockefellers, you DuPonts, all of you so-called elite families, you're going to be the first ones to go into slavery. Okay? You different presidents, rulers, and kings of these different countries, you're going to be our slaves in the kingdom of heaven too. Okay? And we're going to have breeding plantations just so y'all can bring, just so you heathens can bring your people back. That way we can have more slaves to build up the kingdom of heaven. And also more slaves to put our foot in, put our foot up their asses. Especially the nation of Edom, which are you so-called white people, starting with the so-called elites, trickling down to the rest of their nation of people. And you so-called elites, you and all of your family members are going to be the first ones to go right into slavery, along with these heathen nations, along with the kings and nobles of these heathen nations, to execute upon them the judgment written. And what judgment is that is written? Well, I read some earlier. The book of Ezekiel, the 25th chapter, Jeremiah 30 and 16, Galatians 6 and 7, Revelation 13 verse 9 to 10, Lamentations chapter 4 verse 17, Revelation chapter 18 verse 16, 2 Thessalonians chapter 1 verse 6. To execute upon them the judgment written, this honor have all His saints. Praise ye Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai. And then after you serve your 1,000 years of slavery in the kingdom of heaven, this is what's going to happen to you. Obadiah chapter 1 verse 10. For thy violence against thy brother Jacob, shame shall cover thee, and thou shalt be cut off forever. So after the nation of Edom served their 1,000 years of slavery in the kingdom of heaven, all of you red, leprous, piece of shit ass cave dogs are going to be exterminated from out the face of the earth. And there's not going to be another Edomite walking on this planet ever again. And then when you Edomites do get reincarnated, you're going to come back through one of the other nations. You're going to come back as a heathen. You're going to come back either as Ishmael or Elam or Ham, or you're going to come back as Ammon or Moab or Japheth. Okay? So, and that's going to be in the kingdom of heaven. Also, let me get that in the book of Job. Job chapter 20. I don't know what verse it is exactly. Oh, perfect. Beautiful how the Lord just led me right to it. Okay, this is Job, and I'll just start at verse 6. Chapter 20, verse 6. Though his excellency mount up to the heavens, and his head reach unto the clouds, yet he shall perish forever like his own dung. Now hold on, let me slow down a bit. Job chapter 20, verse 5. No, let me start at verse 4. Knowest thou not this of old, since man was placed upon earth, that the triumphing of the wicked is short, and the joy of the hypocrite but for a moment? Okay? So you so-called white people, you're nothing but a bunch of hypocrites. You portray yourself to be these great God-fearing superheroes on TV, you know, who do no wrong, and everything you do in the name of peace and justice. But behind the scenes, everything you're doing for a wicked agenda. So you're no more than a fucking hypocrite. A hypocrite behind a suit. Though his excellency mount up to the heavens, right? That's talking about those so-called satellites they have up there in so-called space, underneath the ozone layer of the earth. Those outer space bunkers they have up there underneath the ozone layer of the earth. Though, and I'm talking about so-called white people, because they do this kind of shit, right? Though his excellency mount up to the heavens, and his head reach unto the clouds. Okay, and his head reach into the clouds, yet he shall perish forever like his own dung. Like for an example, a dog might take a shit in the grass somewhere, right? After a while, you know, you might start to see that shit. You might see it there. But then, you know, one day you might look in that exact same spot and that shit is gone. It's not there anymore. It's gone. Or you might take a dump in the bathroom, and then after you wipe your ass, you flush the toilet, and guess what? You don't see that shit anymore. So the nation of Edom, after they served their 1,000 years of slavery in the kingdom of heaven, they're going to perish forever like their own shit. They which have seen him shall say, where is he? Right, because these heathens, after 1,000 years of slavery, they're going to get their land back. And then, of course, because, eventually the heathens, they're going to grow old. They're going to die. And guess what? After 300, 400 years, they are going to be reincarnated. Okay? They are going to be reincarnated. And guess what? When they come back in reincarnation, one day they might pick up they might decide to pick up the Bible, and they might read it, and then they might see Adawam. They might see Adawam in there, which Adawam is how you say Edom, or they might see Ishashua in there, which is Hebrew for Esau. And then they might be like, well, wait a minute, I see Ham over there. I see Ishmael over there. I see Moab over there. But wait a minute. Where is Adawam at? What happened to Ashashua? So people is going to hear about these so-called white people in the Holy Scriptures, but you're not going to see them anymore. Because after Edom serves his 1,000 years of slavery in the kingdom of heaven, they're going to be eradicated, exterminated from off the planet. So these heathens, eventually they're going to grow old, they're going to die, they're going to come back in a reincarnation. And then at some point, not a single nation on this planet is going to remember who Esau Edom is. They're not going to know they're not going to remember what he looked like. Not unless they read the Holy Scriptures. They're not going to know what he looked like. They're not going to remember what he was like, what kind of personality he had. The kind of weird shit he was into. Ain't nobody going to remember who this devil was. Ain't nobody going to remember who this devil is in the kingdom of heaven. Nobody. After 300, 400, 700 years down the line, ain't nobody gonna remember who this devil is. Okay? He, the nation of Edom, the Edomites, shall fly away as a dream, and shall not be found. Yea, he shall be chased away as a vision in the night. He shall be chased away as a vision of the night. The eye also which saw him shall see him no more, neither shall his place any more behold him. Okay? The book of Colossians, chapter 3, verse 25. Oh, my bad. Hold on. Book of Colossians, chapter 3, verse 25. Okay, Colossians, chapter 3, verse 25. But he that doeth wrong shall receive for the wrong which he have done, and there is no respect of persons. So with that, I'm going to say, Shalom is on to the next one.